Hello, my name's John Locke. I've been working at Emmaus College in North Rockhampton for over 30 years now, and also as part of Roconia Parish, I've had various ministries there for the same length of time. When I'm reflecting on the relevance of the risen Jesus and the Pentecost event to my ministry, I have read over the Pentecost story, which appears in the Acts of the Apostles, which most scholars believe is written by the same person who wrote the Gospel of Luke. So they are part one and part two of the same story. What happened up until Jesus returned to heaven, and then what happened after that. As a member of Emmaus College, I've often reflected on the Emmaus story. And in that story, we hear that the two disciples who are fleeing from Jerusalem are doing so because of the death of Jesus, and they've lost all hope. And this is despite the fact that women disciples had told them and the rest of the male disciples that the tomb was empty and that they had had a vision of angels who told them that Jesus had risen. And we're told that the men rejected this because they believed it was an idle tale. So there's one thing we need to remember in terms of ministry. Unfortunately, that's not the first time, and certainly not the last time, that women have not been listened to in terms of the story of Christian ministry. Then, as they're walking along the road, they encounter Jesus but fail to recognise him. He's a stranger to them. And they tell him about what's been going on, and he calls them foolish, and he corrects them straight after they've told the story about how astounding the news was that the women had told them, and yet it appears to have made no difference to them. When Jesus breaks the bread at Emmaus and passes it to them in the Eucharistic event that we still practice today, suddenly he disappears as soon as they recognise him, which is very mysterious. They immediately go back to Jerusalem, where they've been fleeing from, and rejoin the community, and Jesus joins them again. And Jesus eats again with them, and again there is confusion about what is happening, and he is described by many of the disciples as being a ghost, and he has to correct that. And soon after that story and that meeting and that communion, that eating together, Jesus vanishes again into heaven in the Ascension. So we have two meetings, two failures to recognise Jesus, and two disappearances. Then we go straight into the Acts of the Apostles, and very soon after that starts, we hear the story of Pentecost. Again, everybody's gathered together. Again, we hear a miraculous event where tongues of flame descend upon the disciples. And those tongues of flame remind us of the story of Emmaus, where the disciples say, when they finally recognise Jesus, "Did not our hearts burn within us?" So there are very strong similarities throughout the story. For me, they are the same story. Jesus as the risen Lord is the same story as the Spirit descending upon the disciples. Just as Jesus ascended into heaven, the Spirit descends from heaven, and both of them say the same thing. God is active in this world as Son of God, but also as Holy Spirit. God is active. God is here with us just as much as he was with them in the past. We face exactly the same problems they face. We disagree with each other. We are confused. We misread the story of Jesus and misunderstand what he means, and we constantly have to be corrected. So for me, my ministry now is exactly the same as the ministry of the disciples 2,000 years ago, as conveyed in those stories.